Good morning, everyone. After a long period, I am again creating a video. In this video, let's learn how to create thread. So to create a thread in Java, there are two ways. The first one is by extending the thread class. That is one method. And the second one is by implementing the runnable interface. So these are two ways in which we can create a thread. So by extending the thread class, by implementing the runnable interface. Let us create a thread class and try to understand that. So the first method I am using, I want to extend the thread class. So whenever you extend the thread class, you need to do one thing. One is that you must override run method. So the signature of this method is public void run. This method must be overridden. And the second thing is you must call the start method inside the constructor of your class. So these are two things we should remember when you are creating a thread by extending to thread class. This is a simple thing you should remember. Okay, let us try to create a thread class. I am creating the class and calling it as new thread extends a predefined class called thread class. Okay, we said 2 points. One is we must call the start method. The second one is we must override the run method. So first of all, let us create the constructor for this class, because start method must be called inside the constructor. So I'm creating new thread, and inside I want to invoke the parent class constructor. We can invoke the parent class constructor from a child class by using the super keyword. And there is a particular constructor which takes one argument, which is a string, and that argument is name of the string actually. So I am passing a string here, calling it as demo thread. Then I'm calling the start method. Okay, my second duty is to override the run method. So let me override the run method. Public void run. And inside this, I need to write whatever I want to do using the thread. So for this example thread, I want to print a statement 10 times. Okay, so I am writing some for loop for int I is equal to 0, I less than 10 I plus plus. And here I want to print that system.out.println demo thread plus I. So just I want to print like that. Okay, so just to add some spice to this, I'm calling thread.sleep method, which takes some integer, that is number of milliseconds for which the thread has to sleep. So we can pause the thread execution for some time, and this particular method, sleep method, has a nature that it may raise an exception called as interrupted exception. Okay, so we should put this particular block inside the, this block of code must be placed inside the try block. Okay, I am writing try, inside that I am writing this for loop. Because of the thread.sleep, we need to write this try, and every time the try block is followed by a catch block. So interrupted exception, and if the exception rises, then I just want to print that demo thread interrupted. Okay, if everything goes well, then I want to print that demo thread execution finished. Okay, let's look at what I have written. I have created a class, called it new thread, extend into the thread class. So I have the constructor. In the constructor, I am calling the start method. Okay, then I had a run method defined here, and this run method will be called whenever you create a thread. So whenever I create a thread using this constructor, super will be called, then the start method will be called. This start method will invoke the run method. Okay, this is how this will work. Let us create another class. Okay, and let us call it as, we create a new file which contain the driver class thread driver. I'm calling it as class thread driver. Let me save this thread driver.java. I'll type save. Okay, in this I am writing this public static void main string args. Let me create the thread. So new thread. So I'm just creating this new thread. I don't want to create any reference. So simply I'm writing new thread. This will create the thread. This will call the constructor of the thread. And in the constructor, we have the start method. Start method will be executed. The run method will be executed. I don't want to use it in any other way. Then I am writing the my main method. In the main method, I am writing for int I is equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. Here also I am trying to print this. It's a good idea to put it in the try block. System.out.println main thread plus I. Okay, then after try, let me write catch. Again, interrupted exception IE followed by some statement like system.out.println main thread interrupted. So here also I need to call the sleep method, thread dot sleep. Let me pass some number 600. Then system dot out dot print ln. So here what I want to tell that main thread finished execution. Okay, let me save this, compile, command prompt cd, where is the location, OneDrive slash desktop slash Java. Okay, Java C new thread dot Java. Let me compile it. Okay, then again Java C driver thread driver dot Java thread driver. Let's see what will happen. Let us look at the code. So first I am creating the main, then a new thread is created. Okay, then I am writing try and I am printing some statements. Let me see what will happen here. Demo thread, main thread, demo thread, main thread, demo thread, main thread, demo thread finished execution, main thread finished execution. So what is happening here? You can see that in the first line I'm creating new thread, so which is calling this constructor here, and this constructor is calling the super and start method. This start method is calling the run method. So this run method is executing. That's okay, but we can see that it is not printing all the demo threads. So it is not finishing this thread. Okay, two threads are running parallelly. What I mean to tell is that main thread and demo thread are running parallelly. Okay, in the first line, new thread started, it started its execution. At the same time, parallelly, the main thread started and it started its execution. Both the threads are executing parallelly. We can see this demo thread, main thread, demo thread, main thread. Based on the time, okay, it will be decided which statement is being printed here. So this is one simple example of threads. So threads allow you to do multiple tasks, and these tasks can be done parallelly. Okay. So we said that there are two ways to create the thread. This is one way of creating the thread. Let me see if we can create the thread using the second method. So what is the second method? I said that we should create the thread using class name. Let me call it as new thread only. Implements runnable. This is another thing. Okay. So we said that whenever we want to use this method, you want to implement the runnable, then you must override one method known as run method. Okay, that is the rule we set. So here I am using the second method, that is trying to implement runnable method. And remember that we have to override the run method. That is one thing we should remember. But for this, I need to create a thread object. So I'm creating thread T. And let me write this constructor, new thread. And if you want to give the name for a thread also, we can give it. So in the new thread, what I want to do is that I have to create the object for the thread. T is equal to new thread. We have to pass for this creating the thread. We have another constructor called thread, where the first argument is the thread object. That is the new thread class this, and the second object is, second argument is demo thread. So in the new thread, we are creating this, then call the start method on this particular thread. And you can write your run method. Let me write the same code what we have written there. So this is going to create a new thread for us. Compile it. Java C new thread dot Java driver, thread driver. You can see what is happening here. Main thread, child thread, main thread, child thread. It's running like this. Come here. Let us see what is happening. Here I am printing child thread plus I thread dot sleep, interrupted exception. Everything else is same. Exiting child thread. Okay. So what happens here is whenever this object is created, new thread, this constructor is called. In the constructor, we're creating an object called for thread T, and on that we are calling the start method. The start method is invoking the run method, so run will be executing. This is how you will create a thread in the second method, but that is by implementing the runnable. Thread T, new thread. So you have to create the object for this particular thread, reference variable T is equal to new thread, and this syntax you should remember, this comma name of the thread. We're calling it as demo thread. Okay, then call the start method on T dot start. Write your run method. Thank you everyone. Let us close the class for now.